Part 96. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 960. Latest website. The two had a great time chatting about finance, especially the currency and finance of various countries. They found that many countries and regions had their currencies strongly pegged to the US dollar, and coupled with the lack of monetary autonomy, there were many loopholes. Drill. Of course, shorting a country will cause international incidents. They are just talking about it, but they never dare to do such a thing. Soros has talked about this matter with many people recently and is ready to report it. The relevant departments can use it as a countermeasure. If he can take action, that would be the best. After more than 10 hours of flying, Lu Feng took a brief nap on the plane and landed at Xiangjiang Airport. It was exactly 9:30 in the morning. The sun was shining brightly outside, and there was a hint of coolness in the air. After leaving the airport, we drove directly to the hotel. It will be December soon. You should go back tomorrow. The first board meeting must be more solemn. After all, they still have $3 billion left. Lu Feng sat in his seat and told Han Kuoping, "You can talk to Mr. Wei when the time comes. I don't care. Mainly people from Schroeder's investment group. No matter who comes, they will be received with high standards." Before Lu Feng finished speaking, he glanced casually outside the car window, suddenly froze, and said to the driver, "Slow down, what's going on outside?" "Someone is holding a banner, and the commotion started in the morning," the driver replied. "Isn't this the United Capitol building?" Lu Feng looked at the banners outside and many people watching. It seemed like something big had happened, so he hurriedly said, "Pull over and stop the car." After the car pulled over, Lu Feng saw clearly the words on the banner, which read, "The femme fatale Su Yorong, CEO of United Capital, defrauded hundreds of millions of equity shares and kicked me out of the board of directors." The contents written on many banners are basically abusive and even slanderous, claiming that Su Yorong slept with most of the old men in Hong Kong's financial circle, including Mr. Feng of Sun Hung Kai. Although the banner didn't say who was cheated, Lu Feng basically guessed that it was Li Xian. After pushing the door open and getting out of the car, Lu Feng walked over and took a look. The security guards had all been dispatched to maintain order. A man in his 60s or 70s was pushing and shoving the security guards, cursing constantly. "Why don't you let me in? You're blind. Why did I go in yesterday? Who do you think you are? Let Su Yorong come out. Non-internal personnel of the company are prohibited from entering, please leave immediately." Li Xian's face turned purple with anger, and he yelled, "If I don't leave, what can you do to me? I tell you, get out of the way. If you don't leave, then we will have to carry you away." As soon as he finished speaking, 4 or 5 people rushed up and pushed and beat him. In the chaos, they grabbed Li Xian's hands and feet and lifted him up. The others took advantage of the opportunity to take down all the banners, waved to the people watching around and said, "Don't do it, look, if there's anything interesting to see, it's gone. It's gone." Li Xian was thrown on the roadside, lying on the ground and crying loudly, shouting that he wanted to die together with Su Yorong. Whether it is running a company or doing finance, after it becomes bigger and stronger, when the first batch of veterans and founders finally leave, it is really not easy to leave with dignity. The business world has always been more than just competition between companies in the market. Internal struggles are sometimes more fierce, and calculations between shareholders are often the most deadly. After watching for a while, Lu Feng returned to the car and said to the driver, "Let's go." The car stopped in front of the hotel. Lu Feng went upstairs and ordered a table of food, then picked up the phone and called the Feng family. "Who is it?" The voice on the phone sounded like a nanny's. "Hello, let me ask, is Feng Xiao at home?" Lu Feng asked. "The young master is not here, he has gone to the company." "Okay, give me his office phone number." Lu Feng got the phone number and called it. The person who picked up the phone seemed to be in a bad mood and said slightly impatiently, "Who is it?" "Xiao, it's me. Brother Feng," Lu Feng said into the phone, "I've arrived in Xiangjiang, are you free? Brother will treat you to dinner at noon." "Really? That's great. Where are you?" "I'll be there right away." Feng Xiao's words were full of happiness. This may be one of the few things that made him happy during this time. Lu Feng told him the address and hung up the phone. After thinking about it for a while, he decided to learn about the situation from Feng Xiao. He also really wanted to know Mr. Feng's physical condition so that he could deal with the next step. In the office, Feng Xiao stood up and was about to go find Lu Feng. There had been chaos within the company recently, and the battle on the board of directors had become increasingly serious. People were forming cliques within the company, and people led by the major shareholder Li Jiazhao began to take sides. There was a depressing atmosphere inside the company. Jenkin has talked to Feng Xiao several times. If he wants to gain a firm foothold in the company, he needs support. At least there must be someone on the board of directors to support him. He hopes that he can visit shareholders more and show his ability and idea. But Feng Xiao was very disdainful of associating with those old antiques, and sitting down was nothing but hypocrisy, which made him very uncomfortable, especially when some people had grievances with Mr. Feng in the early years, and now they are talking with guns and sticks. Because of this incident, both Feng Xiao and Jenkin were a little unhappy. Until now, Feng Xiao feels that Lu Feng is the only one in the world who treats him best. People around him are letting him see the adult world clearly. Only Lu Feng still treats him as a child, but he can say whatever he wants and what is in his heart. Just say whatever. After going downstairs, Feng Xiao drove away in his car. After Jenkin learned the news from the security department, he sat in the office and sighed, helplessly saying, "Adieu. What an adieu." At 11:30 noon, in the hotel private room, the food was almost served. Feng Xiao sat next to Lu Feng with a bright face and asked, "Brother Feng just arrived?" "Yes, I originally went back to the mainland after finishing the matters in South Africa. The board of directors was going to have a meeting soon. I heard that your father was seriously ill, so I wanted to drop by and have a look." Lu Feng looked at him and said, "My dad is okay. He is basically out of danger. He has been transferred to a general ward now. However, he is indeed old and has accumulated many diseases. He just needs to live longer." Feng Xiao just looked a little lonely. Regarding the ending of Mr. Feng, everyone can see clearly that it is just a matter of time. That's good. Don't be too sad. It's such a big deal and your eldest and second brothers haven't come back, Lu Feng asked again. "No, they hate me so much now. How could I come back? My dad is like this because the weather has gotten colder. Most of the reason is because my eldest brother is angry. He called me and said that my dad is looking for MRS. I gave him all my things. They had a big fight and were hospitalized a few days later." Feng Xiao applied for loneliness and said, "They are a few years older than me. They played very well when they were young. We are all a family. I never thought about fighting for these things. There comes a time when people grow up, and it's normal for them to have different families when they grow up." Lu Feng ate the food and said, "Tomorrow, I'll go see the old man." "Okay, I'll make arrangements then." "Don't tell him, it's a surprise for him," Lu Feng ordered. "Brother Feng, I feel more and more tired and unhappy recently." Feng Xiao held the red wine glass in his hand, leaned on the chair like a deflated ball, raised his eyelids and looked at Lu Feng and said, "I can't tell, but I'm very annoyed every day. There are a lot of things happening around me, and many people want to teach me step by step, and then life has just begun." Lu Feng raised his hand and patted his shoulder and said, "Everyone on the earth will have a welfare period when they first come to the earth. Some people have a long period of time, and some people have a short period of time. Now it's just that your protective period has passed, and the first snowflake of life is on your head. You have to adapt and learn. But I don't want to live like this. I told my dad at the time that I just want to be a simple person. I don't have to guess whether this person is really smiling or fake as soon as I enter the company door. What he said, do you mean something else? I feel like I have locked myself in a cage, looking at the people in other cages and guessing their thoughts and next steps. Feng Xiao complained, it's really tiring. This is not what I want. Want a life? Han Kuoping and others at the dinner table were silent. Who in this world has the life they want? Does anyone really live like this? Life is quenching, burning off the covering, and you can make as much gold as you want. However, going from solid to liquid is a painful process. You may have been frustrated, confused, unwilling, disdainful, or even given up, but there is no turning back. Brother Feng, can you help me? I can't help you, just like I couldn't help my former self. This is your calamity. Lu Feng could feel that he was standing at a crossroads in his life. Unfortunately, the choice was in his hands. He was able to help. He picked up the wine glass and said to Feng Xiao, cheers, I wish you a bright future. Feng Xiao seemed a little irritable, and some of his words at the dinner table seemed childish. He drank a lot of red wine, and finally got drunk. A drunken boy can solve 1,000 worries. Unlike people like Lu Feng and Han Kuoping, they already know that no matter how much wine they drink, nothing will change when they wake up tomorrow. He opened a room for him and asked a waiter to help Feng Xiao back to the room. It was almost 3:30 in the afternoon. Guo Kuoping hurried over and said to Lu Feng, who was about to go back to the room to rest, Mr. Lu, something big happened. What's the big deal? Lu Feng wondered. Lizian is dead. He is the man we saw this morning. What? Lu Feng shouted. The first thought in his mind was that Su Yurong killed someone again, but then he thought that something was wrong. She had already obtained the equity, so there was no reason to do such a thing. How did you die? Jumped off the building of United Capital. The news outside was all blown up. I heard that after the trouble in the morning, he went to a lawyer and wanted to cancel the contract. After reading it, the local barrister thought that the contract, if it is established, the court will not support it. In the afternoon, he went to the United Capital building and jumped off the building half an hour later. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 961. Latest website. Lu Feng knew that most of the people Su Yurong was targeting were eaten to death by her, but he didn't expect that Lizian would do such an extreme thing. This matter has been widely circulated. In the afternoon, Su Yurong issued a statement, stating that there was indeed a relevant equity mortgage matter. All procedures were legal and compliant, and he personally recognized it. It was not convenient to disclose other matters. As fast as money comes in from an industry, it can go out as fast. Behind huge profits are huge risks. In recent years, with the financial development in Xiangjiang, countless people have jumped off the stock market, but this time they are shareholders of financial companies. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng basically understood the matter. Su Yurong got 7% of the equity of United Capital with nothing, and became the largest individual shareholder of United Capital. Based on her relationship on the board of directors of United Capital, she basically controls the company. As for how many agents Sun Hongkai has hidden on the board of directors, Lu Feng does not know. What a mess. These people are all human beings. I don't know who wants to eat whom. Lu Feng had a headache thinking about it. In the evening, Lu Feng called Su Yurong and had dinner together. In the private room of the hotel, Su Yurong followed the waiter in high heels. Her steps were very relaxed and she seemed to be in a good mood. She was wearing a long dress and a furry vest on her upper body. She was holding a Hermes model in her hand. The little bag is so exquisite. As the waiter opened the door, Su Yorong stepped in, saw a smile on Lu Feng's face and said, "You're here, I think what you've been thinking about is almost like a stone." "As for what?" Lu Feng stood up and said, "Sit down quickly, I have been here in the morning. I heard some things and learned that you were very busy, so I didn't bother you much." Su Yorong did not sit across from him, but walked straight towards Lu Feng, opened her arms and threw herself into his arms, saying gently, "I really miss you." Lu Feng felt the aroma coming to his face, put his arms around Su Yorong's waist and pressed it against his body, saying, okay, let's sit down and eat." Su Yorong sat down and said, "Actually, I have nothing to do. You can call me in the morning. Isn't this day a waste of time?" "Not really, I've heard a lot of news." Lu Feng looked at her and said, "Are you now the largest individual shareholder of United Capital?" Su Yorong saw that he was asking about this matter as soon as they met. He hesitated and said, "It's true, it's not true. I'm just strengthening my control over the company. This matter can only be good for you, not harmful. After all, United Capital controls 10% of the equity of GFN Electronics, and I will be on your side when the time comes." That said, "It's indeed a good thing." Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and said, "Then let's do one." The two of them clinked their wine glasses together. Lu Feng drank a little and said thoughtfully, "Hurricane Capital is a company I may need to use in the near future." Su Yorong raised her head, glanced at Lu Feng, and said, "How do you use it?" "It's not convenient to go into detail on this aspect. The world is not very stable right now. You may need to change your identity to do something," Lu Feng said to her. Su Yorong understood very well that Lu Feng felt that he was beginning to control United Capital and wanted to get off the Hurricane Capital ship. This company was used to take over the equity of United Capital. "It is your company, but it also contains my shares. Now I am still the CEO of United Capital as the chairman of Hurricane Capital. If you withdraw now, not quite appropriate, right?" Su Yorong asked with a smile. "How about this, how about celebrating the new year?" Lu Feng looked at her and said with a smile, "I'm in a dilemma too. If you were an outsider, I would be too embarrassed to tell you, that is, one of my own." "Ha ha ha, you just bully your own people." Su Yorong knew that he had expected this when he made this move. "How could that be? How dare I bully you?" Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and said, "Here's to you. Mr. Feng is not in good health. I heard that he has been admitted to the intensive care unit. Since you are here, go and have a look. There are some things that you should be careful about. GFN is not yours to decide now. It can't be like before." Su Yorong took out a pack of ladies' cigarettes from his pocket, lit one and said, "It's only a matter of time before you're out of the game. Let me see, you should cash out when GFN is most valuable, and then come and join me at United Capital. Finance is really a profitable business." Su Yorong seemed to have planned the future for the man in front of him. As long as the funds were in place, it would not be difficult for United Capital to privatize it. He also knew a lot about finance. "Yes, even you can see that GFN Electronics may no longer be mine." Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, "So I have to rely on you even more. I rely on United Capital, I rely on Sun Hung Kai, and I have to talk to the management after a good deal. The dog leash that Mr. Feng put on me back then is now completely locked." "I'm definitely on your side," Su Yorong said solemnly. "Oh," Lu Feng looked at her with a half smile but took the flu from her and said, "Really? What do you think of your expression? Anyway, we have feelings for each other. Although we have never been married, I have always felt that you have been very important in my life in the past few years. What happened before is definitely I hate you, but I don't hate you so much recently. Those who worked together as smugglers basically had no good ending." Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng and said, "I should thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today. No, 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 I'm a little creeped out by your gratitude. Everyone is doing their own thing. Why do we need to help each other? Lu Feng said. Okay, let's help each other. In the board meeting that will start soon, I will vote for you to be the CEO. As long as it is your proposal, I will support it with both hands and feet. Su Yorong blew a puff of smoke towards Lu Feng and said, then what can you help me with? Under the light, Su Yorong's eyes revealed a trace of charm. Lu Feng seemed to have read some information in them. He quickly turned away and said, let me know if you need my help. It's available now. I was a little drunk. It makes you more energetic when you drink it? Lu Feng. Su Yorong put out the cigarette butt in the ashtray, stood up, took Lu Feng's hand and said, let's go, we have to have fun tonight. The hurricane capital I told you, you have to launch it after the new year. As for the follow-up equity, I will buy out the equity for you in cash, Lu Feng said to her. Su Yorong leaned into Lu Feng's arms, smiled slightly and said, I'm happy, I can say anything. I have plenty of money now and I don't care about your equity. Before Lu Feng could say anything, he was pulled upstairs. Don't be so silly. What do you mean if someone sees you? Lu Feng struggled. Su Yorong didn't listen at all, and she was tipsy from drinking. She felt that she was standing at the pinnacle of her life, holding a large capital group in Hong Kong. Even if Lu Feng, as a young leader, was not by her side, he would be proud of his life. Su Jinhuan, as a woman, she already has too much. From the bottom of her heart, she doesn't care much about Lu Feng. What she cares about is Lu Feng's identity and ability. As the saying goes, I don't care who is the emperor, but I must be the queen. One of the biggest advantages of a high-end hotel is its good sound insulation. No matter how chaotic the room is, it will never affect others. Feng Xiao was lying on the bed and sleeping soundly without any influence. After a long night of fighting without any protective measures, Lu Feng seemed to be used to her behavior. He even asked once if Su Yorong was sterile, but she gave him a blank look. On the contrary, Su Yorong was just taking long-acting contraceptive pills. This was her last resort. She would never allow things like what happened last time in Qingdao to happen. The next day, at around 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng was still sleeping. He was too tired last night. Feng Xiao had already woken up and had breakfast. He had made an appointment to see Mr. Feng today. At around 10 o'clock, Feng Xiao learned that Guo Qiaoping and his party had returned to the mainland, so he had to ring Lu Feng's doorbell secretly. Who is it? This waiter is so annoying, Su Yorong cursed sleepily. I gonna go see. Lu Feng arrived at the door and asked, who is it? Brother Feng, it's me. Didn't you say you want to see my dad? Oh, are you awake? Lu Feng was startled, and suddenly remembered that he was sleeping next door to him. Thinking back to last night, he was a little panicked, and said hurriedly, I'll pack up and come out right away. Who? Su Yorong asked loudly. Shhh. Lu Feng hurriedly ran in and said, keep your voice down, Feng Xiao, I forgot he slept next door last night. Ah, Su Yorong was also stunned and then reacted, just say you found a beautiful woman last night. Lu Feng didn't care what to say and hurriedly packed up his clothes and went out. Feng Xiao saw Lu Feng a little puzzled. Generally speaking, Brother Feng always asked him to come in and wait, and he didn't seem to be in a good state of mind. Look. Brother Feng, haven't you had a good rest? It's okay. Let's go buy some things and leave now, Lu Feng said perfunctorily and asked casually, how did you sleep last night? It's fine. I just heard someone calling. Ah. Later I woke up and realized it was a dream. Feng Xiao smiled sheepishly. Lu Feng didn't ask any more questions. After a few words of confusion, he went downstairs to the mall, bought some supplements and a bouquet of flowers, and rushed to the hospital. In the special ward area of the hospital, Each ward is staffed with professional doctors and nurses on duty 24 hours a day. The interior is luxuriously decorated, with all the equipment available, and the personnel are courteous. In Ward No. 001, Mr. Feng had taken off the oxygen machine and was leaning on the bed. He looked much better, but compared to half a year ago, the difference was not even a little bit different. Since it is a special ward area, anyone coming needs the patient's consent. Lu Feng, Mr. Feng thought for a moment and asked the doctor next to him, "Can these monitoring instruments on my body be removed?" "Okay, but..." "No more buts, retreat." After more than 10 minutes, Feng Xiao and Lu Feng were allowed to enter. As soon as they entered, Lu Feng saw Mr. Feng standing in front of the window holding a wheelchair with both hands and basking in the sun. He seemed to be in better condition than before. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 962. Latest website. Not to mention Lu Feng, even Feng Xiao was a little surprised by Mr. Feng's state. It was as if he had taken a soul-reviving pill. "Dad, why did you stand up?" Feng Xiao hurriedly stepped forward. "Is Lu Feng here? The weather is nice today, let me soak up the sun." Mr. Feng turned around and looked at Lu Feng with a smile on his face, and said, "This man is old. It's normal to be sick. You are so busy, and I still worry about you." "Yes, I bought you some supplements as a token of my appreciation." Lu Feng put down the things and said hurriedly, "You can lie down for a while." "No, my medical team said that I can be discharged from the hospital in the next 2 days. I have recovered very well recently and I will have no problem living for a few more years." Mr. Feng sat in the wheelchair and asked calmly, "South Africa, how are things going over there?" "It has been dealt with. Although it is not perfect, it is the best solution so far," Lu Feng answered honestly. "The international community is not a country, nor can it be solved by just having a few leaders drink and eat. Some problems have fundamental conflicts of interest. If you cannot see these problems clearly, you will not be able to gain a firm foothold in the international market. Anyway, Sun Hongkai is quite satisfied with how you handled the problem this time." Mr. Feng praised Lu Feng. "After all, it is your first time to show your prowess, so you are already very good." "There are still many shortcomings," Lu Feng said modestly. "If Brother Feng can't do it, then no one else can. Even those people on Wall Street don't look up to Brother Feng." Feng Xiao was indescribably confident in Lu Feng. Mr. Feng saw his son praising Lu Feng so much. He was silent for a while and said, "When facing Wall Street, you still have to be cautious. Don't treat Wall Street as a simple financial system. The relationships behind the companies on that street are complex. It's not that they are incompetent, it's about you, but you're not worthy enough, so I'm telling you, if they want, they can destroy any financial company, including Schroeder's, within a month." "Dad, do you think too highly of Wall Street?" Feng Xiao said with some disbelief. "Schroeder's Group is also one of the best companies in the world." "I'm not talking nonsense, I just have to consider the cost. I hope Lu Feng will be more cautious when I say this." After speaking, Mr. Feng looked at Feng Xiao and said, "You go out first, I will chat with Lu Feng for a while." "Should I go out?" Feng Xiao glanced at Lu Feng and wondered in his heart, what could his son not listen to? However, he obediently went out and closed the door. "Do you know about United Capital?" Mr. Feng asked Lu Feng. "Know something?" Lu Feng didn't know what he wanted to say. "I know that Su Yorong is very close to you, but you have to be careful. Your Hurricane Capital should kick her out, so kick her out. You can't let her dominate United Capital. Being out of control is a troublesome thing. Business pays attention to checks and balances. Such a structure is not good for your situation in GFN Electronics Board of Directors. You don't want to be manipulated, right? Mr. Feng looked at him with slightly cloudy eyes. After seeing Lu Feng, it seemed that everything was in the hands of this aging old man. Lu Feng's expression changed a little, he frowned slightly and said, I will handle these things. You don't have to be afraid. As long as you are in Xiangjiang, with my contacts for most of my life, I can check anyone I want. Don't worry, Sun Hongkai controls 10% of the voting rights of GFN Electronics. It will always be yours. I believe you. With such a corporate structure, we must be very confident in the 30% employee shareholding. Mr. Feng braced himself and said, as long as the basics are stabilized, there will be no problem. Things have developed so far exactly as Mr. Feng originally imagined. If a small shareholder kidnaps a major shareholder, whoever Sun Hongkai helps will win. Regardless of the small shareholding, these 10% are the decisive 10%. After the company grew, Schroeder Investment Group wanted to take control of the company, so it was natural for them to sideline Lu Feng. Lu Feng, the founder, didn't want to get out, so he had no choice but to hold on to the management and please Sun Hongkai. In this way, even if he has all kinds of abilities, no matter how much he looks down on Feng Xiao, he still has to behave. You are still thoughtful, Lu Feng smiled reluctantly. Just think more. In the early stage of business, if you dare to fight hard, you need Zhangfei. In the later stage, you need Zhuliang. Once the layout is wrong, everything will be lost. Mr. Feng stared at Lu Feng and said, but don't worry, I have great trust in you. This time the board of directors votes, we will definitely vote for you. Even if I pass away many years later, based on your relationship with Xiao, I believe that this 10% voting right will also be your. I still want to thank you for your trust. I will definitely do a good job in GFN Electronics, Lu Feng said sincerely. Mr. Feng was quite satisfied with Lu Feng's attitude at the moment and asked, international market, what are your next plans? The global market is blocked. We are now backed by the Schroeder Group. In the future, I want to develop in the European market. After all, we are the only one with a large presence in VCD. We mainly focus on midstream and downstream brands. I believe we can carve out a niche in Europe, Lu Feng said solemnly. This is also a last resort. You have to let the Schroeder's group contribute. At the same time, you must also increase the market in Xiangjiang and the mainland market. Only by establishing a firm foothold in the surrounding markets can you go further. Yes, this is also the main direction for next year, Lu Feng replied. What about Su Yorong? I'll take action soon, Lu Feng replied. It's good. I'm recovering well this time. The doctor said that my body function is better than in the previous 2 years. If I live a few more years, it will be a good thing for you, right? Mr. Feng asked. Every old man in the family is like a treasure. If I don't understand anything, I can ask you for advice, Lu Feng said with a smile on his face. I talked a lot today and I'm a little tired. You don't have to worry about me. Just go ahead and do it boldly, Mr. Feng said with a look of exhaustion on his face. Then you rest, I'll take my leave first. Lu Feng stood up and walked towards the door. As soon as he walked out of the door, 4 or 5 medical staff walked in. When he walked out of the door, the smile on Lu Feng's face disappeared without a trace. This time he was hit, which made him very uncomfortable. As for asking Lu Feng to kick Su Yorong out of Hurricane Capital, it looked like a discussion, but in fact it was a tentative order from Mr. Feng. If Lu Feng obeyed, it would mean that Lu Feng had really surrendered. What happens in the future? Lu Feng obeyed the order. If it was done ulterior motives and some small tricks were done, it would be nothing more than a small trick to make Lu Feng suffer at some critical moments of the board of directors. The health condition Mr. Feng showed in front of Lu Feng this time was a warning to Lu Feng that you must be obedient and the chain around your neck must be tightened now. Brother Feng, what did my dad talk to you about? Feng Xiao saw that Lu Feng didn't look right and hurriedly stepped forward to ask. Lu Feng hurriedly calmed down the expression on his face and said with a slight smile, "Just to encourage me, the old man is in good spirits, which is a good thing for your family. I don't know what's going on. I came to see him yesterday and he still had a bunch of instruments inserted into his body." Feng Xiao frowned and thought for a moment, then worriedly said, "Brother Feng, do you think it's a return to light?" Ah, Lu Feng didn't expect this word to come out of his mouth. But looking at him, it didn't look like he was joking. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder with a weird expression and said, "Don't think about the bad things, maybe he's returned to his soul." "It's now, and you're kidding me." "No, don't worry about such a professional hospital." Lu Feng asked him, "Are you attending the board meeting of GFeng Electronics?" "It should be me, I haven't said yet." "Okay, after visiting your dad, I should leave tomorrow and go back to prepare for the board meeting." "See you in Shenzhen in a few days." Lu Feng said to Feng Xiao, "You can stay with your dad more, I can leave by myself. Then I won't send it to you." It's okay, Lu Feng waved his hands repeatedly and left without looking back. Back at the hotel, Lu Feng sat on the sofa and rubbed his face tiredly, thinking about Mr. Feng's words in his mind. Half an hour later, Lu Feng picked up the phone on the table and called Su Yorong. "Hey, who's there?" "It's me, Lu Feng. This time you have to leave Hurricane Capital. I'm not going to kick you out. These things may be under Mr. Feng's control from beginning to end." Lu Feng briefly explained what happened today. "Read it again." Su Yorong on the other end of the phone was also shocked, saying it was impossible. If he really had such strong control over United Capital, how could he be allowed to seize Li Xian's equity? Perhaps this is simply Lu Feng's excuse. "It seems I have to leave." "What about my equity in Hurricane Capital?" Su Yorong asked. "Let's make a price first, and we'll write a contract. We'll discuss the money later. I don't have many options to retreat now, so I can only respond to him in a high-profile manner. I will publish a statement in the newspaper tomorrow that you will be fired." The higher the tone, the more relieved he will be, Lu Feng said solemnly. "I'm helping you, you owe me a favor," Su Yorong said solemnly. "Okay. Then you stay a few more days, repay a little first, and let me feel your true love." Su Yorong's voice was a bit teasing, hinting at how Lu Feng could make her feel true love. "I'm very busy right now. I'll be back tomorrow. United Capital won't be able to attend the board meeting. Then you can appoint an intermediary bank to attend and just invest in me." "Okay, don't worry, you won't be busy tonight, right?" Su Yorong said a little unhappy, "Just let me give in and don't give you any advantage. This is not a good deal." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 963. Latest website. Lu Feng felt very uncomfortable when he heard this. Everyone was just out to fool around, so how could they settle the accounts one by one? You can't calculate the accounts like this. I've helped you a lot before. The money that was transferred to your personal account privately is already tens of millions, right? Lu Feng said solemnly. Su Yorong originally wanted to push the envelope and get more chips, but she was very unhappy when she heard Lu Feng's voice. In addition, she mentioned that she had secretly transferred money to her personal account before. Su Yorong instantly changed. He made a face and said with a smile, "Look, you are still angry with me, but you just can't bear a joke. Mr. Su, I am currently under attack from many sides. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is caused by internal and external troubles. I have no interest in joking with you. We are grasshoppers on the same rope. Don't think that you control United Capital. With 10% of the voting rights, you can control me and make you rich even after spending 10 years in jail for your bad things," Lu Feng said solemnly. Su Yorong got really angry when he saw him. A delicate balance had always been maintained between the two of them. Su Yurong's identity as a fugitive would never be cleansed in this life, not to mention her misappropriation of public funds and embezzlement of funds from listed companies. Son, even in Xiangjiang, it is enough to land her in jail. Not to mention Africa's plan to kill Chen Shifeng and force Li Xian to death. Su Yurong wanted to fall out with Lu Feng, but he had to think carefully about it. Look at what you said, it seems like you are going to die with me. No, I won't tease you anymore. Let's go out for a meal and sign the contract. I can feel it. You are under a lot of pressure now. Let me have a drink with you and relax, Su Yurong said to the phone. What kind of emotions can we have between the two of us? We are all wearing the same pair of pants. Lu Feng softened after hearing her words, and hung up the phone with a hum. An hour later, in the restaurant inside the hotel, Su Yurong was dressed in professional attire. She looked particularly elegant. She wore a white suit jacket with a deep V black sweater underneath. Due to her slightly better growth, the buttons of the suit were not buttoned. Her hair is slightly permed, giving her the charm of a professional woman. What? Are you unhappy? Su Yurong sat opposite, with big eyes blinking, and said in a gentle tone, don't worry, build bridges when encountering water, and open roads over mountains. You were mean to me when you called me just now, you don't know it yet me. She reached out to hold Lu Feng's hand and spoke softly, as gently as a big sister. Lu Feng looked at her and took a deep breath. This woman was simply a non-Newtonian fluid. She was really hard when she got hard. It is really gentle when it is soft, as if it was written by a song, and it will surely capture your heart. It's okay, just stop being angry and I'll do it. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass in front of him and drank it all in one gulp. Why should I be angry with you? Even if you are really at the end of your rope, then why am I still there? Although we are noisy, even if we live as a couple, there will be times when we bump into each other, right? Even if one day, you have nothing, but when I marry you, you will have everything, Su Yurong said gently. Really? Lu Feng stared at her, laughed, and asked, how were your property divided before you married me? Since you are so sincere, then write a letter of guarantee and let the lawyer do it justice. Isn't this talking about the future? Su Yurong said, there's no problem with the guarantee letter. The problem is that you don't need it now. I'm afraid that when the time comes, your property will be classified as premarital property. Give yourself a salary of 1 yuan every month, and I will stay at home and eat my bread while I watch you having fun outside. Lu Feng leaned on the chair and took out 2 books from the side. After signing the contract, he said, okay, stop talking about these useless things and sign this contract first. Su Yurong knew that these words could not deceive Lu Feng, but he did not expect that Lu Feng would say it so directly. He took the contract and took a look at it. He was a little dissatisfied and frowned. Why are my equity shares only priced at 30 million? This is also a high price. When you used bank leverage, you only used a few million in cash. The funds later were returned. You didn't pay much for the equity of United Capital, but I gave it in real money. Yes, giving you such a large equity stake is just to facilitate you to obtain the position of CEO of United Capital. Lu Feng said to her, I am the one who contributes the most. Su Yurong was very dissatisfied with this number. She felt that she had contributed the most and had the greatest risk. Lu Feng just wants to get rid of her with 30 million, which is hard to accept. Otherwise, you first make a statement to the outside world, saying that you have kicked me out, and then. No, Mr. Feng knows everything. There's no point in trying to be clever now. He won't live long. As long as Mr. Feng dies, won't Feng Xiao still be at your mercy? By then, the two of us will first control the equity of United Capital, and then find a way to swallow up Sun Hongkai. Once the two companies merge, securities, listing guarantee, fund business, investment, these are all ours. Su Yurong became excited. Obviously, She also has a huge business empire in her heart. If you don't say that, just sign first. Lu Feng looked at her. Su Yorong realized that she was a little excited, took a deep breath, took the contract and signed it directly. At this point, her withdrawal was inevitable. Lu Feng gave her a bad check of 30 million and she had to withdraw. Even if he didn't give it, she still had to withdraw under the pressure from Mr. Feng. As night fell, Su Yorong did not leave, but chatted with Lu Feng. She knew very well how important this man was to her. Of course, she was also really empty. After all, there was only one person who could talk to her sincerely. As Lu Feng alone, there were many things that were not convenient for him to tell others. Feng Xiao has left. Mr. Feng looks a little weak on the hospital bed. Various instruments have been plugged in. He is afraid that he will not be discharged from the hospital years ago. Jenkin opened the door and walked in. He sat in front of the hospital bed. Mr. Feng slowly opened his eyes and his first words were, "He came and touched my bottom." "Don't be afraid, this situation cannot be broken," Jenkin replied. "You should take good care of your health and live one more day." Neither Lu Feng nor Su Yorong dare to make any move. "Xiao, this kid can't be helped up. You said his ambition is not here, but he is not interested in anything else, even if it's just sensuality, picking flowers and attracting butterflies. At least I gave up this idea, Mr. Feng." He seemed a little excited. Jenkin didn't know what to say, and looked a little helpless as he said, "He needs some experience and growth. If it doesn't work, let his eldest brother or second brother come back and take over. No, the boss is tough by nature and now has his own company. He once told me that one day he will acquire Sun Hong Kai and prove that he is better than me. The second brother has always been bad to Xiao. That kid is petty. Both of us, everyone is doing well, but Xiao is the only one who has no whereabouts. What should I tell Xiao's mother if I go down?" Mr. Feng burst into tears as he spoke, which made people sigh. "Maybe it will be fine in 2 years. You are not going to be immortal right away. I just asked the doctor. The problem is not big. You can go back after you stay here for a period of recuperation and monitoring," Jenkin comforted. "Tell Xiao more and ask him to hold Lu Feng tightly. Even if the brothers fall out one day, he can live a stable life. I also invested in a trust for him. These two guarantees no one can take it away," Mr. Feng ordered. Jenkin sat aside and kept nodding, sighing in his heart, how pitiful the hearts of parents in the world are for thinking about Feng Xiao at this time. "Have a good rest and don't think too much. I'm in the company," Jenkin comforted him. "Has Li Jiazao been restless recently? His brother saw me as an old man. I can feel that this person is serious, just like his brother. You are the biggest shareholder no matter how big the waves can be. Mr. Feng holds 30% of the shares, but if his 3 sons only get 1 share, something will happen. If these shares are not divided in the will, it will not be good for the 3 children. He has been thinking about this problem for many years, but there is no solution. Shenzhen, Jiafeng Electronics Building, has begun to strengthen security at the entrance. The security guard stands straight every day. Some messy furnishings in the lobby of the building have been cleaned up, and a sign indicating the countdown to the board of directors meeting has been added. The headquarters has a tense atmosphere. The administrative department coordinates the arrival time of major shareholders, arranges accommodation, transportation, and who to send to greet them. These are all problems. The largest conference room has been vacated, with new carpets and a speaking platform set up. Wei Yandan held 2 meetings with the administrative department and decided on a total of 2 days of meetings. The first day was to report on the company's operating conditions, and the second day was to vote to elect a new executive president, board of directors seats, rotating president, supervisors, etc. lead. "When will Mr. Lu come back?" Wei Yandan asked the assistant next to him. Looking at the schedule, it should be tomorrow, the year-end electronics conference. An invitation letter was sent. "Will Mr. Lu go there then?" the assistant asked. "Ask Mr. Lu about this." Wei Yandan closed the folder in front of her and said, "Everyone should get off work. The board of directors meeting is coming soon. Everyone should be alert and get this matter done first." The next day, Lu Feng woke up at around 6 o'clock in the morning. He was sitting on the sofa smoking alone. Everyone had moments of depression, but some people had to lick their wounds, while some people could only sit alone in the cold wind. "Why did you wake up so early?" Su Yorong struggled to lean on the bed. "Let's go, catch the earliest ferry," Lu Feng said to her. "Is there something urgent?" "Go back and see my daughter." Lu Feng thought a lot, and an unnatural smile appeared on his face. In his previous life, he didn't understand why he wanted to get married and have children. He went out to be chic every day, with endless beautiful girls around him. He didn't know how many people envied his life. Now he seems to understand that when he is confused, helpless, and depressed, those feasting and feasting cannot make him relax. Only that naughty guy can make people smile unconsciously. Of course, when you are angry, you are really angry. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 964. Latest website. If the 1990s were the time when Northerners ran to the South, then the 1990s were also the time when Southerners ran to Xinjiang. There were many levels of smuggling and people came to Hong Kong to work illegally. It was also at this time that the image of mainlanders in the hearts of Hong Kong people began to be established. Lu Feng stood on the deck and watched several people who looked like mainlanders standing there smoking and chatting about their income this year. It looked like their income was very good. "Are you coming to work here?" Lu Feng asked proactively. "Yes, little baby, are you from Xinjiang?" "You speak Mandarin very well," a man in his 40s said with a slight accent. "I'm from the mainland. What do you do here?" Lu Feng asked casually. "Ah hey, I'm just doing some part-time work." "You go to school here? Your skin is fair and tender, you don't look like a part-time worker," another uncle asked with a smile. "I'm in the business," Lu Feng answered truthfully, trying to find out about the salary of working here, but the two kept silent. "Little baby, do you want to smoke?" one of the uncles said and handed over a cigarette. Lu Feng was not polite. He took it and took a look. "Good guy, it is actually Zonghua." Lu Feng was surprised and said, "Your cigarette is really good. Don't look down on us, you can make money by working outside." The uncle grinned, with an unstoppable smile on his face, as if he couldn't help but want to show off. "What on earth do you do? Make money like this?" Lu Feng asked again. The uncle handing him the cigarette opened his mouth to say something, but the uncle next to him gave him a wink. He smiled and said nothing. Lu Feng could feel the two of them hiding each other. He probably wasn't a regular businessman, so he didn't ask any more questions and just chatted casually. It reflects the changes in the interior in the past 2 years. After chatting for more than 10 minutes, Lu Feng felt that the two of them had not been back for almost a year and did not know much about some things in the country. As the ship docked, Lu Feng packed up his things, took out his ID and bills and prepared to check in. The two uncles were talking to Lu Feng, as if they knew each other. The queue was a bit long. Lu Feng saw 4 or 5 men walking towards him in the opposite direction. Their eyes glanced at him several times and they were slowly surrounding him. "Little baby, I can see that you are a rich man, but let me tell you, being rich does not necessarily mean happiness. Health and longevity are the happiest things." "What do you think?" The uncle next to him was smoking a cigarette and chatting with Lu Feng. "Yes, that's true," Lu Feng replied rather perfunctorily. "You know Qigong, right? Now the whole world is not only speaking Chinese, but also practicing Qigong." Before the uncle could finish his words, someone suddenly rushed up from behind, locked his hands around his neck and threw him to the ground. Almost at the same time, the uncle behind Lu Feng was also put to the ground. In 1 second, a person locked Lu Feng's neck, and a huge force threw him to the ground. Don't move. I'm telling you. Don't move, police. Lu Feng had already taken precautions, but the opponent was too physically strong and did not resist. 3 or 4 people pressed down on Lu Feng and immediately put him in handcuffs. What are you arresting me for? You've arrested the wrong person, Lu Feng shouted hurriedly. Shut up. The other party didn't let him speak at all. He picked up Lu Feng and stuffed him directly into the car. Half an hour later, Lu Feng was placed on the interrogation chair in the interrogation room. 2 policemen sat opposite him, staring at Lu Feng and asking, "What is your relationship with those 2 people?" It doesn't matter, Lu Feng felt that he was really wronged and said, "I just chatted for a few words on the boat. I don't know him at all, and I don't even know his name." Really? The matter is now over. You don't need to quibble. We have a good grasp of your situation. Do you want me to tell you a little bit? The slightly older policeman opposite said, "Disciples of the Wudan clan? British, French, Wudan Guan, Qigong, do you want me to talk about it? I really don't know. I don't practice Qigong. Besides, I'm such an old boss. I don't want to go to Xiangjiang to practice Qigong. Of course, there are a lot of Qigong crazes and special powers over there in recent years. That's all superstition." Lu Feng was afraid that he would be involved in some case, so he said, "I am the boss of Jiafeng Electronics Group. You really have arrested the wrong person. If you don't believe it, give Deputy Mayor Lu a call. Just know it. You are the boss of a big company. It seems that you are still the boss. Whether you are superstitious or not is another matter. You are using the name of Qigong to engage in pyramid schemes outside. This is indeed a big company. MLM. It's unfair. This is an unreasonable disaster. You can find out just by making a phone call. I know the phone number. It's just a phone call," Lu Feng said with great sincerity. The 2 looked at each other. There was originally news that it was 2 people, but suddenly there was a young man. They were also puzzled, so they made a call just in case. 10 minutes later, Lu Feng was invited into the living room. The deputy director of the branch held Lu Feng's hand and said awkwardly, "Mr. Lu, I'm really sorry. They also saw that you were familiar with these 2 people and thought there was someone else. When the person comes back, I will arrest him first and I will apologize to you." "It's okay, I understand." Lu Feng moved his body and asked curiously, "Are those 2 doing MLM abroad? Or is it Qigong?" "Yes, Qigong is now in decline in China, and some people have gone abroad to recruit people. They have rapidly developed and expanded a large number of people through online and offline methods. We are also cooperating with international arrest requirements." No one abroad knows about MLM, Lu Feng wondered. This thing was in trouble in the 1990s. In the end, the country had no choice but to issue relevant legal documents in 1998. You may not know that MLM in our country is the most serious place in the world now. This thing originated abroad and found its soil in China. "We also have a headache," the deputy director said politely. "I won't tell you. Say more, we have to make a surprise inspection. I'm really sorry about what happened today." "It's okay." Lu Feng came back to his senses and said, "Then you get busy first, I have to go back too." After leaving the Public Security Bureau, Lu Feng began to think about it alone. He had just learned that this thing actually originated from abroad and its domestic development was leading the world. In other words, if this model is placed abroad, it will be completely crazy. Jiafeng Electronics has been blocked from going overseas, and the Schroeder Group has spent so much money. It is impossible for Lu Feng not to be under pressure. He now urgently needs to prove himself to shareholders. This incident seemed to have given him a lot of inspiration. After hailing a taxi, Lu Feng thought for a moment and decided to go check out Duo first. When will Dad come back? Duo sat on the sofa, looking very unhappy, and said to Zhang Xiaoyan, Mom, I don't want to go to school. Then what do you want to do? Put on your socks, you're going to be late. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at her and got angry. I want to be a mine manager and use a detonator to blast the mine every day. My classmate is from Shaanxi and his family owns a mine. That detonator is much louder than firecrackers, Duo said with eyes shining. You are a girl who spends your days bombing this and that, Zhang Xiaoyan said angrily. Go and study artillery shells when you grow up. Put your socks on quickly. Mom, I feel uncomfortable. Why do you feel uncomfortable again? Is your skin itchy? I think I may be sick. Maybe I will be sick in the afternoon, Duo said aggrievedly. I got sick this afternoon. I know it now. The midterm exam is about to take place. If you don't do well in the exam again, I won't stop with you. Put on your socks. Zhang Xiaoyan's patience had been completely exhausted and she yelled at Duo. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Zhang Xiaoyan raised her head and looked at the door, wondering, who would come to the door at this time? Me. There was a sense of happiness in Lu Feng's voice. Perhaps he could only feel this kind of mood when standing at the door of his home. Dad is back. Duo ran over barefoot and opened the door as if he had found a savior. When Lu Feng saw Duo, a smile appeared on his face unconsciously, and his whole heart warmed up. He held her armpits with both hands and picked her up, asking, Do you miss Dad? Think, Duo said sweetly. Come on, give me a kiss. Give Duo a sip on the cheek. Here comes one. Another sip. Is the matter settled? Zhang Xiaoyan asked Lu Feng, have you eaten? It's done, but it's not done yet. We haven't eaten yet. Lu Feng put Duo on the sofa and said, I came home as soon as possible. You can have a bite too. Oh, you've had enough. Zhang Xiaoyan saw that his brows were a little more tired, and she guessed that this trip would be difficult, plus there was a lot of fuss about Jiafeng Electronics infringement some time ago. I'll heat up a meal for you, and you can persuade your daughter. She plans to be sick in the afternoon, and she doesn't want to go to school right now. The midterm exam is coming soon, and she's still trying to do this with me. If she doesn't persuade her well, I'll whip her. Zhang Xiaoyan walked into the kitchen while talking. What's wrong? Don't want to go to school? Lu Feng half slumped on the sofa, tilted his head and looked at Duo. This can't be done. How was your recent exam? I did very well in exams. I always scored over 90 points. Duo and you raised their heads proudly and spoke out their hearts to Lu Feng. Dad, didn't you buy me a mine in Africa? I don't want to go to school anymore. I want to manage my mine and become a princess in Africa. That's not a princess, that's the mine manager, Lu Feng said to her. The most important thing for you now is to study hard. The mine will always be there. You are my father's little baby. When I am most helpless, you are my spiritual support. Lu Feng kissed her face with emotion, his voice was very gentle. Before he came back, he wanted to give Duo the best. Although this child was a little skinny, he was still a good child. I don't want it. I don't want it. I want to go to Africa. Ah. I'm going to Africa. I want to blow up the mine. Duo was lying on the sofa with her feet indiscriminately, crying and howling. Lu Feng tried to persuade her in a soft voice how he missed her outside, but they didn't listen at all. Damn, I'm so annoyed. Lu Feng stood up and said to Zhang Xiaoyan, come out and give me a good whipping with a belt. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 965. Latest website. Zhang Xiaoyan walked out of the kitchen with a frown on her face and asked Lu Feng, "Are you okay? You just came back and you want me to whip you with a belt." "Why are you whipping me?" Lu Feng said, somewhat dumbfounded. "You're whipping this little bastard. I'm so angry that I have to go to Africa. You've only been back for less than 20 minutes. When you first walked in, you called me baby. Why don't you let her try with you for 2 months during the winter vacation?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said. Lu Feng was also on a whim. If he really asked Duo to follow him, he would probably have a big headache within a week. Zhang Xiaoyan could see Lu Feng's embarrassment, and brought out a plate of warm dishes from the kitchen, 2 steamed buns, and a bowl of porridge on the table and said, "Let's just eat it. I've missed the first class now. You made trouble with me early in the morning. Go to school first," Lu Feng said to Duo without caring about eating. "Put on your socks and let's go, I'll take you there." "I'm not going," Duo simply lost his temper and rolled around on the sofa. "How old are you, and you are still doing this? I have been working hard outside all day long, and you still want to make me angry when I come back?" Lu Feng grabbed her up and asked, "Tell me, because why don't you want to go?" "I'm going to Africa to mine," Duo said with determination in her red eyes. You. Put on your socks and go to school." Lu Feng was also angry. He picked up the socks next to him and put them on her. The little guy kept moving his feet back and crying. "I think you just have an itchy skin. You don't mean anything. And you, just buy the mine. Why do you put it in her name? Why do you tell her this? She seems to be following a demon." During this period Zhang Xiaoyan became angry. He pointed at Duo and yelled, "Cry! Try crying for me again." Duo burst into tears, struggled to kick off the socks in Lu Feng's hands, and lay down on the ground rolling. "You belong to the top, you need to be slapped." Zhang Xiaoyan pulled her up, raised her hand and slapped her on the back. She slapped her several times. Duo's face was red from crying and she kept coughing, but she still couldn't help it. Crying hard on purpose. "You just dragged her to school and I can't cure you." Zhang Xiaoyan took the car keys from the side and handed them to Lu Feng, dragging Duo out the door. "I'm used to it. I went to Africa to work as a mine manager. Why don't I go to Africa to hunt tigers?" Lu Feng opened the door and shouted at her. "Africa, ahem, there are no tigers." Duo was dragged out. An eldest sister from upstairs came down. Seeing the family in such a formation, she asked, "Xiaoyan, are you beating the child? Get rid of this little bastard, he's so angry." Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan struggled to drag Duo downstairs. When they were about to get in the car, they lay down and rolled on the ground again. Although Lu Feng knew that children of this age would be disgusted by dogs, he did not expect that it would be so difficult to take him. Yan Yi felt helpless and looked at her and said, "You like to lie down, don't you? Then you can lie down. Get up." Zhang Xiaoyan didn't want to say nice things to her. She took off her shoes and stared at her and said, "1, 2. Before counting to 3, Duo got up and sat in the back seat. It was almost 9 o'clock after all the hard work. Lu Feng drove to school and asked Zhang Xiaoyan in the back seat, "Are you in a hurry to go to work? The factory has basically stabilized, and Feng Xia is watching over it." Zhang Xiaoyan sighed and said to Duo, "If you don't do well in the midterm exam, I will settle the score with you again." Duo sat in the back row, sobbing and sniffing. Zhang Xiaoyan wiped her nose, obviously very angry. Lu Feng was also angry. When he was in Xiangjiang, he turned off the lights alone and missed his little baby. Less than 2 hours after returning, he returned from the ideal state to reality. Seeing that Duo's mood had stabilized, Lu Feng told her to study hard, and if she could get the top grade in the second grade, he would buy her 2 more mines and take her to Africa. Stop painting cakes for her. What if she makes a fuss again? Can you agree? Lu Feng turned around and asked. When Duo heard that he wanted to buy a mine for himself, he suddenly smiled and said happily, I want a gold mine. My classmate said that the gold mine is valuable. Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't help but laugh. This little guy has always been obsessed with money, so Lu Feng had no choice but to agree first. When they arrived at school, the security guard saw Lu Feng and immediately walked out of the security room. He held a teacup in his hand and said politely, Mr. Lu, are you sending your children to school? It's a bit late today. This child is making a fuss and doesn't want to come to school. He just cleaned up and calmed down. The teacher needs to come and take care of it, right? Lu Feng asked. It's okay. You can go in. It's the second period now. Don't delay the children's class, the security guard said very accommodatingly. Thank you. Lu Feng pulled Duo inside. The school environment here is much better than most schools in the country. The teaching building is a 3-story small foreign-style building. The playground has also been hardened. 2 rows of trees have been planted around the school. Neatly planned. When we arrived at the door of the class, classes were being held inside. A few children looked out furtively and happened to see Duo. They seemed to have discovered a new world and whispered to each other, the mine director is here. The mine manager actually came to class. Be quiet, the female teacher on the podium turned around and yelled. Teacher, Duo is here. The teacher turned around and saw Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan with Duo at the door. He put down the chalk in his hands. He was a little surprised when he saw Lu Feng and said, What's wrong today? Are you in a mood? I wanted to make a call just now to ask. I'm sorry, I got upset early in the morning and delayed a class, Lu Feng said to the female teacher. It's okay, are you Duo's father? The teacher looked at Lu Feng and asked. Yes, then you go in first and have a good time in class, Lu Feng said to Duo, then he said to the female teacher, I'm sorry for disturbing the class. This child is naughty sometimes, please worry about it. It's okay, the child is fine. Your surname is Lu, isn't it? The female teacher asked. Ah. That's right, what's wrong? Lu Feng felt that something was wrong with the female teacher in front of him. I have something to do with you, so I came to me some time ago. It just so happens that if we can solve it today, we can solve it, Zhang Xiaoyan said from the side. It seems to be a matter of a company under GFN Electronics. Mr. Lu, doesn't GFN Electronics have a factory under construction in Tianjin? My brother-in-law is a supervisor of a company affiliated to your group. He used to be a part-time worker. He is a kind of bastard. He arrived in Tianjin 2 years ago. I don't know. How did he become a supervisor? At first, his family was happy, and he was able to get ahead of himself. Unexpectedly, after becoming a supervisor, he had to pay for everything. In less than half a year, he bought a house and a car, and even had a lot of money outside. The woman started beating my sister, forcing her to divorce, and my sister is still in the hospital now, and he beat her until she was unconscious. The female teacher started crying as she spoke, and it was obvious that she was really worried about her sister. Don't cry yet. There are no construction companies under our group. Lu Feng was not sure. There were so many branches, small businesses, partnerships, and temporary cooperative companies that he couldn't possibly know every one of them. And from what she described, eating and taking cards should have been there from the beginning, but she didn't hit her sister at first because she thought a rich man was about to appear in the family. Unexpectedly, he kicked her sister out of the house. Find another one. The female teacher burst into tears and choked with sobs. You must make the decision for me. Our family really has no choice. We called the police and they said that regardless of family disputes, you have to save my sister. What's your name? I'll have someone check it out when the time comes. If there is indeed a problem with the quality of the project, it will be sorted out. Don't worry, Lu Feng comforted. His name is Li Zhaiki. He is not tall, about 1.7 meters tall. He has a fat head and big ears. He is easy to recognize. Moreover, I heard something from my sister. She said that there was a group of workers on the construction site who refused to deal with him, so he got into a fight with a bunch of people and killed one person. I don't know exactly what happened. Then I understand. You have a good time in class. I will definitely check this matter when I get back, Lu Feng comforted. Okay, don't cry. You are a good man. I know you are Duo's father, so I know that there will be help. Stop talking about this, calm down and continue class. Lu Feng comforted him for a while. The female teacher just returned to the classroom. Lu Feng turned around and glanced at Zhang Xiaoyan and said, "It's hard to control. Isn't that right? How many people does GFN Electronics have, including affiliated companies, cooperative companies, and subsidiaries? Not to mention GFN Electronics, Huasha has almost 3,000 people after its expansion. The number of people who get off work in the new factory every day is Wang's, who knows who is hiding inside?" Zhang Xiaoyan sighed. The two of them walked out of the school gate. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said, "I have to go to work." "Are you going back to the company?" "Besides working for the company all day long, I don't have any life of my own," Lu Feng sighed and said, "When can we, a family of 3, go on a trip?" Travel? Zhang Xiaoyan was stunned when she heard these two words. The two of them own a business and are as busy as spinning tops every day. It seems that travel has nothing to do with them. "Yeah. I just want to relax." "Forget it, let's finish the things at hand first. It's time to relax during the Chinese New Year. I don't plan to go back to my hometown anyway." "How about going to Sanya?" Lu Feng asked. "Let's talk about it then." "I'm going to work first." Zhang Xiaoyan opened the car door as she spoke. "Send me to the company." Lu Feng hurriedly opened the passenger door and got in. The car sped to the gate of GFN Electronics building. Several security guards rushed over and shouted, "You are not allowed to park here, go quickly, go quickly." "What can we do if we stop?" Lu Feng asked as he opened the door. "Hello, Mr. Lu," the security guard said quickly, standing at attention. Lu Feng said towards the car, "Then go to work and have dinner together in the evening." Zhang Xiaoyan didn't say anything. She stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away. Lu Feng walked towards the door of the building. The security guards looked at each other and I looked at you. He breathed a sigh of relief. "Who is that girl?" one of the security guards whispered. "She's so beautiful." "Nonsense, aren't there any beautiful women around the boss?" "I think she is more beautiful than the women around Mr. Lu in the past." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 966. Latest website. When Lu Feng entered the company, several girls at the front desk were stunned for a moment when they saw Lu Feng, and then they hurriedly said, "Hello, Mr. Lu." "Hey." "Okay," Lu Feng responded and walked towards the elevator. "Mr. Lu is back," one of the little girls said with a bit of surprise on her face. Recently, GFN Electronics has been rumored a lot privately. Many people are saying that the country is going to take action and GFN Electronics is going to go bankrupt. The old employees are naturally hardworking and don't believe this at all, but some new employees are a little worried all day long. In addition, Lu Feng has not shown up in the company, and some people say that he has been detained for a long time. Now that Lu Feng has appeared, the uneasiness in many people's hearts has been completely put to rest. After going upstairs and arriving at the office, before Lu Feng could sit down, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." Wei Yandan opened the door and walked in, saying to Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, are you back?" "Mr. Wei?" Sit down, Lu Feng pointed to the sofa next to him and said, how are the arrangements for the board meeting? The arrangements are almost complete. The conference room is arranged in the large conference hall on the 6th floor. A courtesy company will be present that day. The fleet and hotel are all of high standard. We have contacted all shareholders and hold shares within the group. 37 shareholder representatives were elected through voting, and the list of personnel is on your desk, Wei Yandan replied. Who is coming from the Schroeder's group? Lu Feng asked again. The reply over there said that John, the CEO of Schroeder Investment Group, came in person. He is very interested in your development plan and investment direction for next year, Wei Yandan said with some worry. They also said that they expect us to invest in the global market. The annual growth rate of the scale is no less than 25%. Who can achieve such a high growth rate? 25%? The domestic market is basically saturated. Even though the number of home appliance consumers is increasing every year, 25% is too high, so we can only rely on foreign countries. Wei Yandan's face was full of sadness, and Zhu Lidong was even more worried than her. If Lu Feng placed the target on him for next year, I'm afraid Zhu Lidong would resign immediately. As for Kevin, he doesn't know much about these things. He is currently setting up sales lines in Singapore and Malaysia, and it is expected that he will be able to sell goods there by the beginning of next spring. When you take other people's money, you are the boss. If you sit there and say 25%, then it is 25%. I used to give you tasks, but starting from this year, the board of directors will give me tasks. It's all if it doesn't work, I won't be able to bear it. Lu Feng sat down and said, don't rush yet, there's no point in rushing, the soldiers will just cover up the water and the earth. What Wei Yandan admires most is Lu Feng's mentality. Even if he gets angry, he is the most stable. Mr. Lu, I think we should increase investment in the electrical appliance city next year. The market prospects in this area are very good. With diversified development, the profits of the retail industry are already high. If done well, 25% should not be lost. Problems can drive products to compete with other companies, Wei Yandan suggested. Obviously, everyone is very optimistic about electrical appliance city. In fact, Lu Feng is also very optimistic about electrical appliance city, especially since he mainly deals in home appliances, integrating products, logistics, research and development, and sales, achieving a perfect closed loop. It's a pity that Lu Feng doesn't have that much time. The electrical appliance city is a heavy asset and requires a lot of upfront investment. GFN Electronics' current money can only flow into research and development. There are many departments in the group, and there are many good directions. As for this matter, we will discuss it at a later meeting. Lu Feng pondered for a moment and asked, how is the construction of the factory in Tianjin going? The first phase of the project has been completed, all assembly lines have been installed, and personnel training has begun. Production can start before the Spring Festival. We originally planned to arrange for you to cut the ribbon. I wonder if you have time, Wei Yandan replied. When? Today is the 5th. Our arrangement is to go to Tianjin to cut the ribbon after the board meeting on the 10th, Wei Yandan replied. There are still 5 days left, so don't worry, let's go to Tianjin first. Has the quality of the project been inspected? Have all the previous units evacuated? Wei Yandan didn't know why Lu Feng suddenly cared about this. She thought for a while and said, the construction workers must have evacuated. After all, the project is completed and the Chinese New Year is coming soon. As for some related units, they probably haven't evacuated yet. Then book your tickets for tomorrow and I'll go take a look. Mr. Lu, if you go, you must make arrangements for the reception, and the local leaders will also attend the ribbon cutting. This matter needs to be communicated in advance. Wei Yandan thought that Lu Feng was going to cut the ribbon, so she hurriedly said, some of your things this month will still be important. Quite a lot. I received invitations to many important conferences. I'm not going to cut the ribbon. Just go and cut the ribbon. I just want to see the overall situation. Just give me the phone number of the general manager there, Lu Feng asked her. Give me some unimportant dinners and meetings, push it. There are mainly two conferences, one is the electronics conference that you attend every year, and the other is a new conference that has attracted a lot of attention this year, called the Internet Conference. This year, the domestic Internet has been connected to the international market, and it is very popular now. Many computer professionals who have returned to China are talking about this, and the country also supports the construction of information highways. Internet Conference. I have to go to this one. Lu Feng wanted to see what kind of monsters were there at the first Internet Conference, but 1995 was indeed the first year of the Internet. From this year onwards, Internet companies sprung up like mushrooms after a rain. It was not until the early 2000s, when the Internet bubble burst, that new life was seen in death. Wei Yandan was just joining in the fun for him at this conference. According to Lu Feng's character, he would definitely not go. Who would have thought that he would actually go? Book a ticket for me to go to Tianjin tomorrow. The electronic conference is also arranged. After attending these two conferences, if there is nothing else, I will have a holiday. Lu Feng stretched and said, as much as possible this year, give me a few more days to rest. Then I will ask the administrative department not to arrange your schedule unless there is anything special. After Wei Yandan finished speaking, he said, for a moment, the major shareholders will be arriving in 2 days. If you go to Tianjin, the reception work. It's okay, just let them stay in a hotel when they come, Lu Feng said casually. The company is developing well, let alone staying in hotels, even sleeping on the streets. These people will be happy. Then I will be responsible for the reception. I will ask the administrative department to contact the person in charge in Tianjin later. Wei Yandan stood up and said, okay, I'll rest for a while and ask them not to disturb me. Lu Feng stood up, looking a little tired, and walked towards the bedroom. With Lu Feng returning to the group, the entire GFeng Electronics seems to have a backbone, and everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. Even if this man just stays in the room and sleeps, for the senior management, as long as he is still there, it means that everything is in order. No problem. Zhu Lidong and Du Guoying wanted to talk to Lu Feng several times during the period, especially Zhu Lidong. He felt that he should increase investment in sales channels next year, especially the expansion of logistics, but people in the chairman's office kept saying that Mr. Lu was busy. He didn't know exactly what he was busy with in the office, and he didn't dare to ask. In the evening, Lu Feng was in good spirits. He went downstairs and drove straight to Zhang Xiaoyan's house. Duo was already back, sitting obediently at the table writing homework. Judging from the shoe prints on his back, he must have been beaten. Smoke. Zhang Fengxia was here today and came out with 2 plates of food. When she saw Lu Feng coming, she said, my family asked you to come to my house to celebrate the new year. Lu Feng frowned and said teasingly, this is a favor, why are you helping to create a TV series? After you go to someone's home to meet their parents, why don't you go see them during the Chinese New Year? Zhang Xiaoyan walked out and said, it has to start and end. Then I might as well marry her. Lu Feng said halfway before looking at Zhang Xiaoyan and saying, it's exactly what you want. What? Zhang Fengxia shouted, Sister Xiaoyan is working hard for me. This is the way of capitalists. Only by settling down the family well can you have no worries. Then who am I? Employee benefits of Hua Cotton Factory. Lu Feng couldn't help but laugh. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia couldn't help but laugh. The atmosphere at home seemed particularly harmonious. When the 3 of them were together, Zhang Xiaoyan was still the same Zhang Xiaoyan as long as they didn't mention such sharp issues as childbearing. If you really can't escape, just celebrate the new year with me. We are going to travel this year and go to Sanya for vacation. Lu Feng looked at Zhang Fengxia and said, I'm sorry to disturb the world of you two, right? Zhang Fengxia said, slightly embarrassed. What kind of world for two? Zhang Xiaoyan sat down and said, we just get together to celebrate the new year, nothing to disturb us. Zhang Fengxia felt a little embarrassed being caught in the middle. It was true that she didn't want to go home, and traveling was an option. Zhang Xiaoyan's generosity often felt like a sense of guilt to her. Let's not talk about this anymore. We'll see when the time comes. Let's eat first. I'll go to Tianjin tomorrow and buy some marijuana flowers or something when I come back. Lu Feng could see her discomfort and hurriedly changed the topic. Because of teacher Duo Duo, Zhang Xiaoyan said thoughtfully, I thought about it today. I don't know whether this is true or not. Maybe her sister was beaten and she came here to complain. Besides, we are not a public institution. If you don't want to mediate these things, just let the people below check it out. Not entirely. The main thing is that the factory has been completed. I'll go and see if I can solve it. If this involves the quality of the project, it will be a big problem. Lu Feng looked back at Duo Duo and said, first of all, stop writing and come over for dinner. Harmony was restored at the dinner table, a program was playing on the TV, and the four of them were talking and laughing. Nothing seemed wrong, but they felt that something was wrong. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 967. Latest website. In the evening, the female teacher returned to her dormitory, cleaned up briefly, went to the phone booth of the school canteen, and called the hospital. I'm looking for Wang Huimei from your department, the female teacher said into the phone. After a while, a woman in her 50s or 60s came out of the ward, picked up the phone and called again. Hey! Where's the little girl? Wang Huimei asked. Mom, it's me. Don't worry. Don't get too angry. I met the boss of GFN Group today. Didn't I tell you? His daughter is in my class. Such a big boss promised me. Li's Heike will definitely have enough to drink a pot this time, the female teacher said with a sinister look on her face. Really? That's great. When the boss comes, we have to entertain him well. You let him come to our house. I'm very busy, and I didn't say anything today. The female teacher was embarrassed. Isn't his child in your class? Let the child talk to him tomorrow. I think Li's Heike dares to be tough this time, but he can't be cured. The voice on the phone was a bit proud, as if Li's Heike would never dare to do it again this time. The nest is in trouble. How is my sister? Are you awake? The female teacher asked with concern. I'm awake, my daughter. In fact, your sister has a concussion. It's not a big problem. I just asked your sister to pretend to scare him. She is such a bad thing. After making money, she wants to kick us away. There are no doors. No, you still dare to hit someone? This is a big deal. The woman's voice on the phone was a bit sharp, and it sounded like she was not someone to be trifled with. She then said, I'm telling you, you have to take good care of the boss's kid. These rich people don't regard money as for the flowers. Please tell your children more. If you should give gifts, give them, and don't be embarrassed to accept them, you know. I know, Duo Duo's father is often away. I heard before that the couple got divorced and are often away from the country. We happened to meet him today, the female teacher replied. It's the end of the year, so it's normal to come back. I won't tell you more. The phone bill is quite expensive. Wang Huimei hung up the phone after saying that. Duo Duo finished writing last night and sat next to Lu Feng, acting coquettishly. The little guy also knew that Lu Feng was very angry today. He hugged Lu Feng's arm and made a coquettish promise. Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiaoyan were sitting at the coffee table, looking at the packaging designs of new products. Lu Feng touched her head and asked, Are you sleepy? Go back to the house and sleep. I want to sleep with Daddy. Okay, okay, just don't kick anyone tonight. Lu Feng pinched her little face affectionately and asked Zhang Xiaoyan, has the new factory been put into use? Production has already started. We are not building a new one. We bought it from someone else's factory. Now we mainly make washing powder and soap. The products are currently divided into 3 categories: daily chemicals and low-end cosmetics. Small household items and so on. Zhang Fengxia explained, it's just facial oil, children's talcum powder and so on. The market for this type of product is relatively large. This is a good direction. I think the most important thing about facial oil is the packaging and taste. After all, a box only costs 2 or 3 yuan and can be used for a year. People can accept it if it is a little more expensive. Change it to an iron box and have it printed on the outside. The red petals can also be made into shapes. Lu Feng provided them with ideas. It's simple and elegant. Zhang Xiaoyan nodded slightly, seeming to think that Lu Feng was right. Let's give it a purely natural name. Isn't the Osman thus oil sold well now? You can just call it chrysanthemum oil, rose oil, whatever. Lu Feng said casually. Yes, this is the direction. Zhang Fengxia nodded, looked at Lu Feng and said, let's go to bed. What time is it? What are you waiting for? Ah, Lu Feng stretched out, glanced at the clock on the wall and it was already 10 o'clock, and said, I'm not sleepy yet. As soon as I finished speaking, I yawned. Zhang Fengxia couldn't help laughing and said, don't wait any longer. We have a lot of things to do, and they may not be finished by 12 o'clock. Lu Feng looked at Zhang Xiaoyan. She was concentrating on the document in her hand. It seemed that she really had no intention of talking to him. Lu Feng had to stand up and move around. He pretended to glance back and said, go to bed early, don't be too tired. I know, you go to sleep first, you have to catch a flight tomorrow. Zhang Xiaoyan raised her head and glanced at him and said, let Duoduo sleep. Lu Feng nodded and walked towards Duoduo's room with some reluctance. Zhang Fengxia couldn't help laughing. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little embarrassed by her smile. She put down the pen in her hand and said, can we be more serious? Keep going. The two of them were whispering and laughing. Lu Feng lay on the bed and turned off the light. He put his hands on the back of his head and sighed, woman. Oh. Life, Duoduo sighed, pretending to be lying next to him. You're just sighing, go to sleep. Dad, is Africa good? Lu Feng patted her back with one hand and said, it's not good. Go to sleep and don't ask questions. Dad, can you tell me a story? Duoduo's big eyes were particularly bright in the darkness. Okay, let me tell you a Cinderella story. Once upon a time, there was a Cinderella. She was very miserable. Her family always bullied her. One day she found a djinn emerging from the necklace her mother gave her. The djinn, seeing that she was suffering too much, he gave her gorgeous clothes and a carriage to attend the prince's wedding. As a result, the prince fell in love with her. The stepmother's daughters were jealous and used a vicious trick to force her away. She ran to a house in a panic. In the cave, it was found that there was a snake spirit living inside. The snake spirit was jealous of her beauty and tied her up. However, she was seen by the old man on the opposite mountain, so he sent his 7 gourd boys to rescue her. After the rescue, Cinderella was especially grateful to him. Wanted to repay her, but accidentally slipped and fell off a cliff, and accidentally traveled to another world. She made up her mind to return to her own world to repay her grandfather, and practiced hard to finally build the foundation. Later, she reached the golden elixir and nascent soul, and became a god 1,000 years later. The empress of the world broke the barrier and returned to the world of the old man. She asked him what he needed. The old man said that there were 2 mountains in front of him and he wanted to move them away. So Cinderella moved the mountains away. This is the story of foolish old man who moved the mountains. Go to sleep. Duoduo's eyes were stuffy after listening to it, and he couldn't sleep anymore. Lu Feng couldn't care less, so he covered himself with a quilt and soon started snoring loudly. Early the next morning, when Lu Feng woke up, Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiaoyan were already sitting outside eating breakfast. It looked like they bought some soy milk and fried dough sticks from outside. "What time is your flight?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked. "I don't know, I didn't ask," Lu Feng said while eating his meal. "I'll wake up Duoduo, he'll be late again soon. It's Saturday, let her sleep a little longer." After Lu Feng finished eating, before leaving, he hugged Zhang Xiaoyan and took a bite, which was not in vain. At 10:30 in the morning, Lu Feng got on the plane alone and flew to Tianjin. At the group headquarters, Zhu Lidong knocked on the door and entered the office. He found that Lu Feng was not there, so he went to the next office to ask and was told that Mr. Lu had gone on a business trip to inspect the Tianjin factory. In Wei Yanden's office, Zhu Lidong sat across from him and said, "Mr. Wei, what do you think Mr. Lu thinks? Competition in the domestic market is so fierce now, and publicity expenses have been increasing, but no money is allocated. Mr. Zhu, if you have anything to say, just tell Mr. Lu and don't whisper to me." Wei Yanden was a little unhappy. He told himself this because he didn't like that he didn't let him go to Mr. Lu's office yesterday. "I'm not whispering to you. I really have to talk to Mr. Lu when he comes back, otherwise I won't be able to complete next year's performance," Zhu Lidong said a little irritably. "Then tell him, his schedule is very tight, you seize the opportunity," Wei Yanden said expressionlessly. Zhu Lidong sometimes wanted to have a meal with Liukan, and would talk to him over and over again, but Liukan was as busy as a top, and there were not many opportunities for the two of them to meet. At around 1 o'clock at noon, Lu Feng walked out of the airport. The person in charge of the Tianjin branch and a group of people were already waiting, laying flowers and holding banners. The scene was quite lively. "Hello, Mr. Lu, I am the general manager of GFN Electronics Tianjin branch, and my name is Zhang Quan." A man in his 50s had a smile on his face, bowed slightly, and held Lu Feng's hand with both hands. "This trip is mainly to see the factory. Some of the ostentatious things are not necessary." "Is there anyone in the factory now?" Lu Feng asked. "Is it put into use?" "It hasn't been put into use yet, but there are already workers. We have booked a hotel, please come here," Zhang Quan said politely. "No, just go to the factory cafeteria to eat," Lu Feng ordered. "Okay, I'll make arrangements soon." Two business cars were heard outside, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Lu Feng got into one of the cars. Zhang Quan closed the door and got in the car and sat next to Lu Feng. This Mercedes-Benz S-Class is specialized in business services. There is a car phone on the car. Zhang Quan picked up the phone and called the factory. "Hey, tell the chef in the cafeteria to prepare 2 tables of hard food. Important leaders are coming. Find a few girls and ask for something good." Hey, hey, Lu Feng looked at him and said, "Why are you looking for a little girl?" "Mr. Lu, this is just a welcome ceremony. I prepared it for you at the hotel. Now go to the factory and do it again." Lu Feng stared at him with a frown and asked, "What did I just tell you?" "Ah? What?" Zhang Quan was asked. He didn't know what Lu Feng said. He had always been in charge of receptions. No matter who came, he would always have good food, drink, and hospitality. This would never go wrong. "Don't do those ostentatious things," Lu Feng's voice was filled with anger. Oh, Zhang Quan said hurriedly into the phone, "Just make 2 tables of rice." "Little girl, I don't want it. Don't do anything ostentatious." Lu Feng felt the luxury of this car. He felt that Mr. Jiang's life was much more exciting than his own. GFN Electronics was already very large. There were some subordinate companies that Lu Feng had never heard of. The person in charge is a person who covers the sky with only one hand. "Is this car rented?" Lu Feng asked. It belongs to our company, mainly for business reception, John Quan replied. Is this a Mercedes-Benz S650? Yes, imported cars. It's very luxurious, even more luxurious than the cars at the group headquarters, Lu Feng said with a gloomy expression. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 968. Latest website. Even though Zhang Quan had no eyesight, he still felt something was wrong at this moment. He was stunned and said hurriedly, this car is mainly used for business receptions. Our branch here has just opened, so we still have to take care of the relationship and save face. Well. Lu Feng nodded slightly and leaned back in his position, closing his eyes and concentrating without saying anything else. Zhang Quan took a quick look and his heart was pounding. He didn't know what the boss's personality was like or what he liked. If he offended him, he would be afraid. No good fruit to eat? What's more, he came alone this time. This kind of situation is almost impossible in other companies. The boss of every company who comes to inspect is not always surrounded by people. The companies below all start preparations 1 month in advance. Last night, the entire new factory area was cleaned overnight, and the work was not completed until about 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. Zhang Quan could only do his best. The car drove into the factory and stopped directly at the entrance of the canteen. Zhang Quan whispered, Mr. Lu, we're here. Lu Feng opened his eyes. Someone had opened the car door next to him. He got out of the car and looked around. The entire factory area was brand new. There was cold air in the air, attacking the skin exposed to the air. Mr. Lu, the canteen is ready, Zhang Quan said to Lu Feng, let's eat first. There were 20 or 30 people standing next to the car. They were the top management of the entire Tianjin branch. Seeing that Lu Feng was afraid to speak, they were really unbearable standing in the cold wind. Where is the factory area? Lu Feng turned around and asked. This is the living area. The first phase of our project is mainly the living area and part of the factory area. The staff building over there is enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. There are 6 canteens in total, 3 large and 3 small. We also built a staff building in the entertainment area. That building is a cultural center with Jiafeng culture as the core. It also has a dance hall, table tennis, singing area, etc., and a series of production areas, warehouses, etc. are over there. The second phase of the project is mainly the factory area. Okay, let's go take a look, Lu Feng said and walked towards the factory. The boss wanted to go see it, and the others could only accompany him. These people had not eaten yet, so they followed Lu Feng and walked forward. When they arrived in the area, they would be introduced by the relevant person in charge. Whether it was the assembly line or employee accommodation, Lu Feng went through everything. Overall, it was very good. Lu Feng also knew that even if there were problems, they would not be exposed in front of him. Some things need to be done alone. Excavate alone. If you can hide it, you will never let the higher-ups know. In the blink of an eye, it was already past 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Lu Feng looked at everyone's hungry faces and said, let's eat first. The cook in the canteen cursed all afternoon, and finally the food was served. The atmosphere was very harmonious at the dinner table. Zhang Quan was quite eloquent at the dinner table, and he was funny and humorous from time to time, which made the atmosphere extra special. Good. After 3 drinks and 5 dishes, Zhang Quan's face turned red from drinking and he said to the crowd, everyone, stop for a moment. Let Mr. Lu say a few words for everyone and applaud. There was a burst of applause at the scene. Lu Feng cleared his throat and said, the new factory has a new mission. GFN Electronics has gone through a long road, but it is full of twists and turns. As the senior management of the branch, everyone who is doing it should have new responsibilities. After the new year, after that, the new factory will be put into use. I hope that the new factory will become the mainstay in terms of output, and I wish everyone success in advance. As soon as he finished speaking, the audience burst into applause. The meal lasted until around 9 o'clock in the evening. Many people were flushed with alcohol. Lu Feng said to John Quan, "There will be a board meeting at the group headquarters soon. As for me, I came to take a look at it temporarily. The time is quite tight. It will be held almost tomorrow. Gone back. This place has really undergone earth-shaking changes this year. If you stay one more day, I will give you a good introduction to our place," John Quan persuaded. No, I've already booked my flight for tomorrow," Lu Feng said to John Quan. "I've had a lot of fun today. I mainly rely on you here." "It should. As long as you do a good job, GFN Electronics will not treat any brother badly. I believe everyone can feel it from all aspects," Lu Feng said to John Quan. "It's getting late. Let's eat and drink first." Let's go back and rest first." "I'll see you off." John Quan and several senior executives put Lu Feng into the car and watched the car drive away. The smiles on the faces of the people around John Quan quickly disappeared. A bloated middle-aged man asked, "Mr. Zhang, what does this mean?" "I just heard him say that he was leaving tomorrow." "Yes, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm probably here for a quick visit. I heard he said the board of directors is going to have a meeting, and he has to give an explanation." John Quan looked much more relaxed and said, "A boss like this came down to watch alone, what can you see?" "Ha ha ha ha," the person next to him couldn't help laughing. "You are still too young. As long as you serve as a leader for 2 more years, you will have some experience in inspections, but this is fine, let's relax." "Mr. Zhang, are you still paying out the New Year's bonus?" asked the vice president next to him. "Definitely. Don't let too many people know about this. After the new year, just say that the second phase of the project is about to start. Ask the headquarters for a budget, and then fill in half of the wages of migrant workers." John Quan moved toward his side. The vice president ordered, "Do you understand?" "Don't worry." Lu Feng was sent back to the hotel. He went back to the room and took a bath. He lay in the bathtub. Lu Feng knew in his heart that if he just came to take a look, he would not see anything. He did not know whether Li's Heike had beaten his wife. One thing is certain, that is, this person does make money. The current construction site situation is even more messy than it was many years ago. After many years, at least the country began to pay attention to this aspect. Now it is completely dark under the lights. "Let's fight back and see again," Lu Feng muttered, lying in the bathtub with his eyes closed to rest. The next morning, everyone in John Quan saw Lu Feng off. He spoke with great sincerity and said that he must work hard. The Tianjin factory must set an example for the Suzhou and Dongguan factories and become the core engine of the group. After everyone took a group photo together, Lu Feng got in the car amidst everyone's politeness and headed straight to the airport. As the car drove away, Mr. Zhang and the others completely relaxed. The mountains are high and the emperor is far away. What's more, after the board meeting, Lu Feng did not have the final say in the company alone. With so many subordinate companies and overseas companies, he was busy running around. Who cares what happens here? Not far from the factory, the construction site of the second phase of the project has stopped. The site is extremely messy, with only a few rows of dark blue simple rooms left. There is a smell in the simple rooms, and there are rows of shelves inside. The bed and bedding were extremely dark, and 17 or 8 men were crowded into this room of less than 15 square meters. "How Lu, tell me what's going on with the introduction? It's been more than half a month and I haven't been paid yet." "That's not what I said when I came here. I just said that I would settle with him once a month. It's fine now, 1 year it's all for nothing, complained a man with a Tianjin accent. Okay, just say a few words. Didn't Hao Lu say that he will pay you today? Besides, how can such a big company owe you that little money? A lean man with messy hair sat down and said. Foreman, if you don't go and ask, the leaders will find it hard to wait. Buy someone a pack of cigarettes and talk to them carefully. Everyone was chattering, and people from other rooms also walked out. Dozens of people gathered outside. They had been waiting for half a month. Not only these people, more than half of the workers during the entire construction period did not have their wages settled, and the remaining half paid half of their wages and were sent away first. The total amount of debt owed is tens of millions, and the number of workers is 2,000. Just because they have no money to go home, there are 270 workers living on the construction site living on noodles. All the foremen were staring at the time. It was already 10:30 in the morning. The boss had promised them before that the boss would come to inspect. As long as they didn't cause trouble, the boss would settle their wages and go home for the new year. Let's go to the finance department to collect wages. Hao Lu stood up and walked outside. Lu Feng arrived at the airport, sat in the VIP room, and looked at the ticket in his hand. Sir, your plane is about to take off. Please board the plane. The flight attendant stood nearby and said with a smile. Lu Feng glanced at the ticket in his hand, tore it into pieces, threw it aside and said, I'm not leaving. After leaving the airport, Lu Feng hailed a taxi and went straight to the hotel in the city. From the Mercedes-Benz, Lu Feng's intuition told him that the people in the Tianjin factory were not that simple. The whole world knew about the company's financing of $3.5 billion. Some people within the group began to feel that the company was rich and would not care about small amounts of money, so they began to become more hands-on. Especially after October this year, various reimbursement expenses have increased significantly. Lu Feng is waiting to spend all this money on research and development, so that these people can eat and drink, and do nothing else later. Sir, may I ask? The hotel receptionist saw Lu Feng stunned for a moment and asked, did you leave something behind? No, it's still the same room. Open it for me. After opening the room, Lu Feng put down his things and went directly to the factory. He had only been away for a few hours, and the welcome banner at the door had already been removed. The security guard was sitting lazily at the door, drinking tea. Compared with how straight he stood when Lu Feng arrived, it was a huge difference. The weather was a bit cold. Lu Feng put on his hat and put his hands in his pockets and walked around. The factory area was really big. It would take an hour or two to walk around. Going west from the gate, Lu Feng saw that there were many people. When they got up, hundreds of people gathered, cursing in different accents, as if they were fighting in a group. What's wrong with this? Lu Feng stepped forward and asked. Grass mud horse. Give out money. Why don't you pay us? You've already done all the work, so why don't you pay us? There are so many excuses. Let your leaders come out. Where can there be such a thing? We starve to death and calculate the ball. If we don't pay wages today, we won't leave. I tell you, we will die at the gate of GFN Electronics. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 969. Latest website. Lu Feng began to frown when he heard the noise in front of him. It seemed that not only was something wrong, but it was also a big deal. Someone was already pushing and shoving in front of him, and the curses kept coming. Lu Feng hurriedly stepped forward and asked, what's wrong? There were 3 or 4 people who looked like migrant workers in front, pushing and shoving with a few arrogant people. The leader was a man in his mid-20s, wearing a brown wallet, with a bald head, about 1.8 meters tall, and he weighed 100 kilograms and had a gangly look on his face. He pointed at the worker at the front and shouted, "Are you going to get the hell out of here? Try moving again." The migrant workers in front were still pushing and pushing her, and they were saying that they would not leave until they gave me money. You, have you given face?" the man cursed and hit him with a big slap in the face. The migrant worker was hit with blood from his nose. Seeing this, other people shouted that he was being beaten and rushed towards him. Forward. More than a dozen people rushed over, knocking the first few people to the ground, raising their feet and kicking their heads. One of them jumped up with 2 feet and stepped on his head. "Stop fighting, what are you doing? Damn it, how much hatred do you have?" Lu Feng shouted hurriedly when he saw this. "If you yell again, who do you think you are? If you yell here, damn, I will kill you if you yell again." "Do you believe it or not?" the tall man in the lead pointed at Lu Feng, with a fierce look in his eyes and shouted, "Kill your whole family, I will kill you. There is money to pay. If you don't believe me, try it." After all, migrant workers are people. If they were to take action, these ferocious young people in front of them would not be enough for a laborer to look at. But if they dare to take action, they are not afraid of being caught. If they take action and are caught, the whole family will be killed. It's over. After a beating and pushing, the leading man entered the house. The remaining people dared the migrant workers to get out of here, otherwise they would not be blamed for being rude. "We have to ask for wages. We have worked for a year, why shouldn't we be paid?" Hao Lu stood up. The 40-year-old man asked. "A few bastards, Mr. Sun promised a few days ago." "Yes, you let him come out, we have cooperated as much as we should, what else can we do? If there is no explanation today, we will die here and not leave." The crowd was excited, saying that they would not get paid today and would not leave even if they died here. Seeing that this group of people couldn't be beaten away, a man in his 50s came out, wearing a formal suit, like a leader, and scolded, "What are you doing? How can you beat someone? What are you doing?" A few bastards seemed to have cooperated in advance and ran away. "Who are these people? As if it's not chaotic enough, it's really a time of trouble." The man looked at the crowd and said, "Why are you fighting with those people? You have enough to eat? You want wages, I understand. Can you also understand the company? Can such a large company, an international company covering an area of several thousand acres, owe you money? Mr. Sun, you can give it to me." "I agreed to send it today." Hao Liuyi and the others felt unspeakably aggrieved. "It's the end of the year, and there's nothing I can do about the headquarters collecting the debt. I'm also a part-time worker. If you want to blame the group headquarters, blame the stupid boss. Otherwise, when the second phase of the project starts next year, you guys are still here, and it's spring. I will settle the settlement for you as soon as possible, and I will give you a guarantee," Mr. Sun assured everyone. "No one will believe this kind of nonsense. If you keep putting it off again and again, and if you don't admit it next year, who will you turn to? We want it now. If it doesn't work out, let's settle half of it first. These people won't even be able to eat," Hao Lu said helplessly. Several people lying on the ground were still suffering from nosebleeds and probably didn't even have the money to go to the hospital. "I really don't mean it. It's useless for you to make trouble. If the trouble continues, I will call the police. Isn't it appropriate to go to jail during the Chinese New Year?" Mr. Sun threatened a few words, turned around and left. Lu Feng stood in the crowd and saw clearly, and shouted loudly, "Don't leave, come back." Mr. Sun turned around and looked at Lu Feng, and asked, "Who are you, the one who is yelling at me here? You said you have no money. Where did the money go? Before the project started, all the funds had been received. For such a big project, how little salary is needed?" Lu Feng yelled at him. "The first phase of the project is one account, and the second phase of the project is its another investment account. how can the accounts be mixed up after 2 investments? Mr. Sun was stunned by what Lu Feng said. He frowned and asked, who are you? At this moment, Lu Feng wanted to reveal his identity and give Mr. Sun a slap in the face, but he knew that it would not work. If it was just a matter of his own words to solve these salary issues, the underlying problems would continue to exist. It's not a matter of accounts, it's a big problem with the management of the new factory, especially in the financial aspect. If these people are not cleaned up, the factory will not get better. You don't care who I am, asking you questions. You, Mr. Sun cursed, turned around and left. This group of people had no choice but to stand there with their heads downcast. Some of them had already turned pale, and it was obvious that they had not had much nutrition during this period. What should I do? What should I tell my wife when I get home? The Tianjin man was so anxious that he almost cried. Others also looked frustrated. They didn't dare to insist on asking for anything if they didn't want it. As I said last time, if they made trouble again, they wouldn't give it at all. Whoever doesn't make trouble will be given priority at that time. The money that originally belonged to me was held back by this money. Several people who were knocked to the ground had already gotten up, with blood stains all over their faces. Lu Feng stepped forward and said, "How are you? It's like this. Don't break the bridge of your nose. Go to the hospital." "No, I'm fine. I'll pay for your medical expenses first, let's go," Lu Feng said to him, "go and take a look." "Don't go now, the hospital door is difficult to enter." No matter what they say, a few people just don't go to the hospital. From what they say, they all come from all over the country. Their wives farm at home and their men go out to work. They rely on this little money all year round. Of these 200 or so people, half of them have never returned home. I don't even have travel expenses, and I can't get paid before the Chinese New Year. I'm happy to be able to eat a meal of boiled noodles on New Year's Eve. "What do you do, Hao Lu?" asked Lu Feng. He could tell that the fair and clean young man in front of him didn't look like an ordinary child. He looked like a college student. I specialize in helping people ask for wages, just to help you migrant workers ask for wages," Lu Feng said to them. Everyone stared at him in disbelief. Who would want to swim in such muddy water? When they came to the big city, they saw too much of the colorful world. The city people help the city people, and the rich people help the rich people. They are people working on the construction site. They have been here for almost a year and have never even been out of the street. Lu Feng felt everyone's distrust, so he had to say, "My help is not in vain. After the matter is completed, everyone will give me 50 yuan. I will cover all expenses during this period. This is not the only one of you who is owed wages bar. There are too many people. The people in front have not paid their wages. They said that the second phase of the project has started. They have no choice but to leave. We will come back next year." There are almost 3,000 people. A Shandong man next to him squeezed over and said. 3,000 people, that's enough. 50 yuan per person, do you agree? Lu Feng asked. "Okay, no problem. 50 yuan is definitely a huge amount of money for them. The wages at the construction site are not high now. A small worker only earns 10 yuan a day. A big worker is better and can pay 17 to 18 yuan. The highest salary is for a welder, who can earn 10 yuan a day. Earn more than 20 yuan. Let's go see a doctor. I'll pay first." Lu Feng waved to everyone and led a few beaten people to the hospital. "We took a taxi first, and a few people squeezed in to go to the hospital. Several foremen wanted to follow them, so they couldn't bear to take a taxi, so they walked there. After arriving at the hospital for an examination, it was found that 2 nasal bones were fractured, and the remaining few suffered soft tissue contusions. After paying the fee, it was almost noon when the work was completed. "Thank you, boss. Do you want to get the salary?" Hao Lu asked, squatting along the wall of the hospital. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll make it if you get there. Lu Fen knelt down and asked several foremen, who is this Mr. Sun? Mr. Sun is the big boss who takes over the project. All the subcontractors below us have run away. They have paid their wages and gone home to celebrate the new year, Hao Lu replied. Is it possible that the money was given to the foreman, but the foreman ran away with the money? It's impossible. This company is different from other companies. We are directly connected to GFN Electronics Group. He has set up a subsidiary construction company. I heard that it was originally China Construction or some state-owned enterprise, and then someone interfered with it. So I subcontracted it, and then subcontracted it to the subsidiary company. At that time, there were fights on the construction site every day. Hao Lu felt scared when he recalled it, and said, I heard that people were killed. That is to say, GFN held an open tender and the state-owned enterprise won the bid, but then there were people making trouble on the construction site every day, and the construction party subcontracted it to GFN, Lu Feng asked. Yes, do you think there is something wrong with Boss GFN's brain? Xiao Henan next to him asked with a grin. Yes, that's right, there is something wrong with the brain, Lu Fen nodded and said, if you don't do this, there will be no profit. They are here to take care of the disease first. Let's go back first and buy some food and meat. What can we do at the construction site? Do you want to cook? Yes, Xiao Henan stood up, his eyes shining, and asked, Boss, do you want to treat us to dinner? Yes, I'll treat you to a good meal and celebrate in advance to get back your wages. Lu Feng stood up and said, go buy some vegetables and meat first. A few people took a taxi and went straight to the vegetable market, where they bought half a fan of pork, vegetables, and steamed buns enough to feed 200 people. During this period, I also got to know Hao Lu and Xiao Henan. Hao Lu is from Hebei. He is divorced. He works odd jobs all over the country. If he can't get a job, he becomes a foreman or something. Xiao Henan is from Henan. He is 17 years old this year. He is in elementary school. He stopped going to school after graduation and farmed with his family in the village for several years before being taken out to work by his uncle. Xiao Henan also has a cousin who is a few years older than him, and his salary is also in arrears. Latest website.